From Canton, Ohio. This is Roster Rescue. I'm Zack Zander, your host. Today we're going to be talking college football. Most importantly, Devy startups today. And I got a friend I met at the Fantasy Football Expo last week, Andrew from Fantasy Scouts. And he's leading their Devy department on that end. So, Andrew, how are we doing today? And thanks for coming on the show, man.
Man, we're doing great. I'm excited to talk some Devy football. I've been growing in it for about 3 years now. Super excited when the scouts reached out to me and asked me to kind of take it on and lead this challenge.
Scouting and the NFL side of it, dynasty football. So it's easy when you meet another Devy head or another college football head. It's easy to get to talking. It's easy to just start rambling on. So I really loved what you guys the website and everything you do in the Devy and the fantasy scouts and stuff like that. And I try to act like I'm a scout, man. That's like my favorite thing is reviewing tape, trying to find the sleepers, trying to analyze all the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, obviously. So I can't wait to pick your brain on some of this stuff. But how did you like Canton?
Dude, that was an awesome experience. Like you said, us Devy heads, whenever we get the chance to meet up and talk, it feels like we can talk forever. So it was awesome getting to see some of these guys from like the Devy Marketplace, Campus of Canton, some of these people that we hear about kind of leading this industry of Devy football for our enthusiasts out there, and meeting these people face to face, sitting down and having these conversations kind of like me and you did.
It's the next thing I want to say. Devy in the Campus of Canton setting, which they're two very different things, and we'll get these startups. There are two very different things that are similar, and it all forms from like, hey man, I don't know when you started. I started playing fantasy football back in like 2005. I was like 19 years old, and it was a standard league, and you had like one keeper, and that was fine for me. And I had like one other league that I commissioned myself, and that was fine for a while. And then I got another league, and then I found Dynasty like 5 years ago, and then I found Devy about 2 years ago, and this year I found Campus of Canton, which is just a whole nother freaking level of like, it was a 45-round draft for the college side.
Oh yeah, it gets deep.
It was very deep, and I thought, I felt like I was in over my head a little bit. But then when the draft ended, and then I start analyzing everything, there's players like, oh shit, man, I missed somebody on the waivers. Like I want to get him once waivers open up. So I think it's going to be a thing that's going to grow. Dynasty has grown. Mm-hmm. Like I said, we play in a standard league, and then you got like PPR, then you got like Superflex, and now like tight end premium. So it's always something. That's what I love about fantasy football. It's always evolving. Draft a player, and I loved college football. I loved the NFL draft. So Dynasty just mixed it all together. It was amazing, and I love it. And we're gonna break it down right now, man. We're gonna get Andrew. We're gonna get your Devy startup strategy maybe from the start. So a normal Devy startup. So you draft on the NFL side. And then either halfway through or after the NFL side you're done with, then you start drafting your college players, depending on the league. I just did my first one I commissioned, and we drafted 12 college players. And that was the Devy side. So it didn't get 45 rounds, but I wanted to be more than a 5 or 6 round Devy startup. So if I remember correctly, I think I got the 5th pick in each draft. So I had the 5th pick, and I wanted to get a high Devy pick because I needed to know I was going to get one of the quarterbacks in Devy, and I wanted to know I was going to get one of the quarterbacks on the NFL side, and then I was going to build around them because it is a super flex league. So I got Justin Herbert on my NFL side, and then I just went and just started killing it with running back value. I ended up bailing back out. I got a Matt Ryan share, and I got a Zach Wilson share. So I was very happy with my quarterback situation, and it would have went different. If say I had the 9th or 10th pick, because I only drafted one college quarterback, and it was Bryce Young. And I was really happy with that. But then I knew I had Zach Wilson. I knew I had Justin Herbert. So I was like, my quarterbacks are going to be set. I'm fine with that. So I just started killing the running back game. But if I wouldn't have got a Justin Herbert type, I probably would have threw some more darts at the college side, at the quarterback side. What's your biggest, I guess, when you're starting these startups, what's your mission? Do you just let the board play out? Are you trying to just get as many quarterbacks and then maybe make trades later? I mean, what's your strategy?
Yeah, so I've only got one Davy League going right this second. It's actually one I set up and started commissioning myself as well. There's got a bunch of guys in there. I let them kind of help pick the settings for themselves. So we went with Superflex, tight end premium, half point PPR. We start 2 running backs, 2 flex, and 3 receivers. So for me, my biggest part was I love Debbie already, so I was okay waiting off this first year. So I did focus more on the young side as well. So I remember I started off with the 102 on the NFL side, traded back because we were getting able to pick kickers as placement holders for our Debbie picks. We only had 4 rounds, so it was only 40 players. And so for us, I started just collecting those young picks as much as I could. Since it was also 6-point touchdowns, ended up with going Lamar, Aaron Rodgers, who at the time, we weren't even sure if he was coming back, Mac Jones. And that told me I knew I had at least one starter, but I wasn't sure about the other 2. So kind of like you said, I had to prioritize these quarterbacks in the Debbie side very quickly. Thankfully, I got a lot of the early picks, so I got some of the guys I wanted. And so for me, then it became a focus of, okay, just best player available. I had 5 different rail side, and then I went with like Justin Jefferson before I went and started just
how I'm going to play this, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what is going to unfold. You don't know who's going to, throw a curveball at the whole entire draft board, and then you have to kind of regroup and maybe go a different way. But to me, and if it's a super flex league, you have to jump on the quarterbacks early and often on both sides. So like I said, I got Bryce Young, I got Justin Herbert, Zach Wilson. I got young quarterbacks. I can feel you can always trade a quarterback. You can always move off something. You can like their value is only going to go up. Like I've been eating up Zach Wilson shares in all my dynasty startups just because he's falling to like the 5th, 6th round. And we've seen it last year with Herbert. And I'm not comparing him to Justin Herbert at all, but the same situation. Not everybody was in love with Herbert. He was the 3rd quarterback last year, and he ended up outplaying everybody else in the whole draft class. And now, like I said, he was a top 5 pick that was going probably in the 5th, 6th round of startups last year. I'm not saying Zach Wilson is going to, escalate into that his 2nd year, but man, the dude's got some talent, and he was, I thought it was a steal in the 6th round. I thought it was a smash all day. So I got my quarterback situation, and then I just killed the running back. I passed on the Justin Jefferson types like you're talking about, the A.J. Browns. I love them. The DK Metcalfs, I love them. It's not that point. It's just wide receiver goes like 40, 50 deep. So I pass wide receiver in startups, guys. I feel I can always go out and get a wide receiver later during the season or in the off season or next year, whatever. I passed like the 6th or 7th round, and I started picking off guys like Devontae Smith, Michael Gallup, Juju Smith-Schuster, who is a value right now in dynasty and redraft, any format. He is a complete value right now. So those are the type of wide receivers I'm looking at. And I'm passing the A+ wide receivers just because it's so deep. And they can fluctuate. Michael Thomas, this time last year, Michael Thomas was wide receiver 1 by a mile. And now look where he's at. And not even talking about injury. It's just, now everybody's talking about how old he is. Now everybody talks about Drew Brees being gone. So wide receiver is a position I fade big in these startups.
Zach, I think me and you might have been drafting the same type of way because, like I said, I got those 3 quarterbacks on the NFL side. I think I also grabbed like a Taylor Heineke super late, just seeing if, Ryan Fitzpatrick, if he's that journeyman type again this year and he's not the consistent starter, we might see Heineke boost his value as a sale later on. I ended up going Gibson, Justin Jefferson, and then I went like 2 more running backs back-to-back rounds, I think CEH and Javonte Williams. So like I skipped all the receivers except for I just wanted Jefferson. And then on the Debbie side, with where I was picking, I ended up grabbing Spencer Rattler, DJU, Quinn Ewers, and Caleb Williams. So that gives me at least 7 quarterbacks right there. I plan on using those, getting the receivers I want. I went for those flyers.
If you sit on them for long enough, like I compare Debbie to like how a baseball team runs its farm team. You just accumulate assets and you use them. If you're going on a playoff run, you might have to maybe trade one of those star quarterbacks to get somebody to throw in your lineup to go on a playoff run, and then vice versa. If your team is struggling, then you might trade one of your dynasty players on the NFL side and get a Devy player and work for the long haul. But damn, that is a haul for your quarterback field, man. I mean, I applaud you for that one because that's nasty right there. You could be looking at 4 or 5, 5-star type quarterbacks on that side. So on the Devy side, it's best player available, right? I mean, you have to go best player available, and the quarterbacks are going to trump everything. The tight ends. Now, if you bring it into a tight end premium league, I seen Eric Gilbert in one of my campus at Canton leagues go in the top, I think, 15 picks. And we're talking about a guy that might not even play this season. But tight ends are so hard to find. And in the college side, they're really hard to scout. I mean, tight end, I think, is the most important position at the scouting combine is for tight ends because you need an elite skill set to be a dominant tight end. The Darren Waller's types, they came out of nowhere and are blowing up in the NFL right now. You have to be a special type person. You see, power forwards from college basketball that aren't good enough to make the NFL just show up and start playing tight end because they have some of the elite features of some of these players, Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham. I mean, we've seen it. So it's get the best players. But you don't look so much like, hey, my wide receivers are kind of flimsy on my NFL side. I'm going to overdraft wide receivers at the Devy. You do not want to do that.
No.
Anybody listening right now, you don't want to pick off 5, 6, 7 wide receivers in a row and pass up on quarterbacks and running backs on the Devy side just because your NFL side needs a wide receiver 3, because obviously they're not going to help you this year. This is all for the future. This is all your farm team. You're just trying to build and collect assets. And how my Devy side went in my last draft, I think, Garrett Wilson, I'm a big fan of. So I did grab him early in my Devy side because I think he is a lock to be a top 50 pick in the 22 NFL draft. I think he's a lock. Second round, it was about 2.7, 2.8. The running backs went really fast, and I wasn't planning on going Garrett Wilson. I knew everybody in the league respected him. So I knew he could be an easy flip candidate if I wanted to play that role, or I knew he was going to be a top 50 pick. On this Devy side, it's all about the NFL prospects.
Oh, yeah. I'm about to say, kind of like you said, I knew going into my startup, it's like I was giving up being strong at receiver and slightly at tight end as well. I kind of faded tight ends for a little bit. But I knew if it got to the Devy side, I had more picks than most of the teams out there because I prioritized that. So, like you said, I'm going for the most valuable position, quarterbacks and then running backs. I pushed off receiver, and I still came out with Chris Olave out in the third. And the dude looks like if things go well this year, he could still be a top 50 pick or late second at most, going far back.
I agree with you 100%. He's not going to be a first-round guy. I don't think he would have been a first-round guy last year. He is what he is. He's a speed guy with a nice route tree. Some people think he might jump into like a Terry McLaurin role. I think he's more of maybe a B-type player, maybe along the lines of, I don't know, like a Hollywood Brown or something like that. Maybe Jalen Reagor. Maybe never be a number 1, but a good number 2. A decent fantasy asset in a third round of a Devy. You can't be mad at Olave. No way at all. So let's just hit the Devy side now. I think everybody is they're pretty ready for the NFL side. I mean, we're August, man. We're 2 weeks away from the NFL starting. We have college games this week. The main slate starts the week after. So it's happening, baby. I cannot wait. This is the most exciting time of the year for me. This is Christmas to me. So I want to hit on these quarterback rankings. How does your tiers go on the college side? Because you have a Spencer Rattler that will probably, in my eyes, be the first quarterback taken next year. Sam Howell, I think, is the second. And then it's really murky for the 22 quarterbacks. Now, after that, the 23 quarterbacks, you got DJU, like you said. We got viewers. And then we have Well, no, Ewers would be 24. Excuse
24.
me.
Yep. Bryce Young, your boy.
And then we got Bryce Young, who is about to. He's already the $1 million man. He's already getting 7 figures at Alabama. Why would you leave? Why would you leave? So how do these tiers go on the college side? How do you tier them up between the youth and the players that are ready to enter the draft next season?
Yeah. So for me, I think I kind of look at the top tier as kind of like the guys who are already kind of shown themselves with the highest ceiling they have, while also kind of weighing out through each class. Sometimes it's easier to take the shot at what I believe is a QB1 of, say, 2024 over possibly QB3, QB4, even QB5 of 2022. So for me, my top guy is definitely Spencer Rattler. I think he is the runaway favorite for the Heisman this year because we know Heisman candidates normally ends up mostly being quarterbacks, but it's also quarterbacks tied to good playoff teams. And I don't see any reason why Oklahoma's not going to the playoffs and has a potential chance to finally put it all together this year. So for me, I've got Spencer Rattler, DJU, and Sam Howell is kind of like my top tier. DJU I do have over Sam Howell just because I think he has a little bit higher ceiling. And we don't have any worries about people coming in on the draft side and going, well, he didn't have his weapons this last year, and let's watch him fall apart and nitpick. That's my biggest concern with Sam Howell this upcoming year. He just lost both his running backs, and he lost his top 2 receivers. If the dude can put together a great season, even just like he did last year, I think that's going to answer a lot of questions about some of the people who are worried about his mechanics. So that's my top 3. Right after that, I've got Bryce Young. I'm super excited about him, but again, we've only seen 30 snaps. $1 million man, but only 30 snaps. So the dude's doing pretty good so far. But no, I think Alabama's one of those teams. They'll find a way, put him in a good position, and he'll make the most of it. There's a lot of good weapons there I like for Bama. After that, that's kind of my second tier, just Bryce by himself. The third tier starts off, I've got Quinn Ewers and then Caleb Williams right there. And the reason, like I said, is because I want to go and try and take that extra year of waiting to potentially get a quarterback that should be a top 2 pick for that year. I know it's a lot of things could happen, but we've seen it. Oklahoma's quarterback factory. Spencer Rattler, to be the 4th quarterback next year coming out, probably in the first round, top 5 pick. I don't see any reason why Williams is not going to be continuing on that line. Quinn Ewers, golden mullet, of course. Dude is the most hyped quarterback I've seen from high school since Trevor Lawrence. And Ohio State is, my goodness, even more loaded when it comes to weapons at receiver, and his own running back, Travion Henderson, is going to stay with him until they both go to the NFL. Right after that, that's where I kind of get interesting a little bit for me. I'm going to shoot for the upside. And again, this is saying a lot as a Mississippi State fan. I think Matt Corral has a really, really good shot being that QB3 for the 2022 class. So that's where I've got him. Yeah. So, I mean, I really think this year we're going to see Ole Miss just go lights out with that offense. They're going to have to keep scoring because that defense isn't going to keep up with some of the other stronger teams in LSU or in SEC like LSU. You got Bama and just other teams that they're going to have to see.
No, man, I agree with all of that. And Corral, I'm trying to come around on him. That's exactly what Felix from Campus to Canton brought up. That was his favorite player to be the QB3 of the 22 class. My friend Chris came on here, and he has Matt Corral over Spencer Rattler. I think that's a little insane. I mean, Corral, he has some arm talent. Don't get me wrong, and he can move around a little bit. He's not a very big guy. I think a lot of people are falling in love with what Zack Wilson did last year, and compare the body style, compare the game a little bit. But we can't just forget about 2 separate 5 interception games. Like it's. Lane Kiffin can really call a play in college football. Lane Kiffin can dial it up, and they put up the most points against Alabama all season last year. I mean, Lane Kiffin, he knows Nick Saban, though. He really does. So they're going to be really fun. Elijah Moore's gone. I mean, we're talking about a guy that was 7-8 yards open almost every single play down the field. It seems like I'm trying to let him grow on me, but I have a whole year to take more in. You know, not a huge sample size last year. He's a guy, not the prototypical quarterback by any means, but he's got some wheels. And this day of age, we're talking about Bryce Young. The upside with him is because of his legs. Corral can move around also. I love your tier setting, though. I love exactly how you had it. Spencer Rattler would be my first one. DJU has all the talent in the world, and it's Clemson. They're going to put him in a great spot. Sam Howell is going to be a first-round pick. It's hard. All right, if you have a top 5 or 6 pick, you have to take quarterback on the Devy side, even over Robinson from Texas. And I love him, and I really do. I had Austin. He called him a tier 0. He says he only a tier 0 once every like 3 years. Like Trevor Lawrence, Saquon Barkley were the last 2. I don't know if he's quite Saquon Barkley, but he's amazing. He's going to be an NFL player. It's hard to bat an eye at him, but after those first 5 or 6 quarterbacks, it's wide open. It's wide open, and it's where I completely wanted to get one, and then I just let him slide by. I mean, we have Jaden Daniels from Arizona State. Is he ever going to be in the NFL? We don't know. JT Daniels, I'm higher on him than the consensus, but we don't know. Is he going to – if you're not a first-round pick as a quarterback, you're probably not ever going to be a starter. Jalen Hurts is going to try to break that mold this year, and, of course, Dak Prescott did, and there's always going to be an outlier, right? But – like, you are picking guys that are going to be first-round picks, and those first 5 quarterbacks are quarterbacks that I can guarantee are going to be first-round picks unless something goes crazy, unless something goes haywire. After that, I like Graham Mertz from Wisconsin. I think he's a prototypical guy that's not going to move around like some of the players that we're talking about, but he's got really good arm talent. He can play in the league. I just don't know if he's going to be a first-round pick. Malik Willis, Kendon Slovis. Slovis is the most accurate quarterback in college football, but he has a C- arm. Quickly, what do you think about Slovis?
I guess it depends on what year we look at. 2019 looks so promising as a freshman for Slovis. I thought his upside arc did look like a first-round pick going into just this upcoming season. And then this past year, we kind of saw that all fall back apart. The line was not as good as it needed to be. I know there's been the news that he was fighting through that shoulder surgery. So, I don't know. I think Slovis is probably going to end up being the quarterback 4 of this next class if it's not Malik Willis. Those two have kind of been flipping back and forth between. And Carson Strong, I know that's another name that gets thrown around, but I don't see the mobility enough in him. So, I don't know. Is his ceiling Mac Jones? Just not as many numbers or as good of numbers in college. That's where I'm at. So take him if you can get him because he's going 3rd, 4th round in most Devy drafts I've been seeing.
I have to see more of Carson Strong. I really do. It's why go quarterback heavy, because you don't want to be relying on these guys to be your future of the quarterback position on your NFL side. You just don't. So I want to pinpoint on one of the players you just talked about. I mean, the golden mullet. The tape. I'm gonna queue up some of the tape for anybody that's watching on the stream right now. If you're listening, I'm sorry. Watch the stream, but if you're watching right now, I'm gonna queue up a little Quinn Ewers tape, and it's a multi board round. But this guy has as much hype as Trevor Lawrence did, as Andrew Luck did. I mean, he is throwing it around like Patrick Mahomes did at Texas Tech. He has all the arm angles. He's tall. He's lanky. He has the strength. He has the mobility. What do we think about this guy? Do you think he's going to – I mean, C.J. Stroud can play, but is he next level? I think it goes back to when Trevor Lawrence was a true freshman. Mm-hmm. And I forget his name. He was a very solid quarterback, and he got him to the Final Four the year before, and he was 6-0, and they benched him. Oh, what is his name? He ended up transferring to Missouri. Either way, it was time to get Trevor Lawrence in there, and they ended up winning the national championship game that year, and Trevor Lawrence's first overall pick, obviously. So what do we think about Ewers? When is he going to get on the field? Because there's all the talent in the world there. There's all the talent at Ohio State. We have back-to-back number 1 wide receiver recruits coming in. We have, it's loaded. Olave, Garrett Wilson are going to be high draft picks next season. They have young guys. They have older guys. They have running backs. I mean, what do you think the ceiling is on this kid, and is he worth the hype?
Yeah, so I mean, I happily took him at the end of the first round of this startup. I think the kid's all worth the hype already. It's not often we see kids who are 17 years old get offered as much money as he did to come play at a major university like Ohio State. I mean, it's not like Mississippi State over here offering him to come play. I mean, that's completely different. But for Ohio State to go out like that, like the kid, I believe, has a very high ceiling. First overall pick, 2024. I wouldn't be surprised at all calling it right now. Like if that happened, it's not a surprise for anybody. The issue is CJ Stroud is working with a ton of great weapons, like you highlighted. Olave, Wilson, I believe Ruckert is their tight end over there. They've got a myriad of different running backs back there I'm kind of impressed with. So I think what we're going to end up seeing this season is they're going to try and play him during maybe a couple of late blowout games, and they're looking for CJ Stroud to potentially struggle against one of their bigger opponents. And I think that's when they're going to go to years similar to what you said, Trevor Lawrence. Just look for that moment to plug in your best player after he's learned the system and just let it go.
Yeah, I feel bad because they also have Kyle McCord there, who is he was a five, not maybe if not a 5-star, he was a very high 4-star prospect.
4-star.
And it's Ohio State. I am not going to cry for them. Trust me, I'm a Miami Hurricane fan. I'm not going to cry for the Ohio State Buckeyes that you have too much talent in that quarterback room. No, I'm not going to. But CJ Stroud seems like the guy that maybe a little bit of JT Barrett a couple years ago. He can move around. He's going to be able to run. He's going to win a ton of games with all the talent around him. But is he that next level player? Because Ewers isn't going to sit for 3 more years. He's not going to sit for 3 years. He's not. And Stroud is a I mean, if they can, he's still a freshman. He has 4 more years. I mean, he was a freshman last year. We all know because of COVID and everything. I don't know if he's considered a redshirt freshman or I don't know. He played a decent amount last year.
Yeah, they've got a very interesting situation.
Ewers is not going to sit around for 3 years. I don't care if he's getting $1 million. He can get $1 million. They go play football at any other school. And the way they let people transfer now, then who knows? So they're going to want to get this guy on the field. The fans are going to be clamoring for him. I mean, it's next level talent. I think he went 1-3 in the last Devy we did. He actually went over Sam Howell. Wow. I thought that was a little crazy, but if I was sitting there at 1-6, I was going to be happy to get him. Like I did. I mean, I didn't have the choice to take him or Bryce Young. I would have took Bryce Young, but it would have been a hard decision because we've only seen, what'd you say, 30 snaps from Bryce Young?
30 snaps.
You know, and he brings what it is. You know, this is fantasy football still, but he's going to be able to run around and score those fantasy points like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, everything. But on the Devy side, these guys have to get to the NFL or they're not worth nothing to you. That's why the slowest is I'm not very interested in. Malik Willis, he's going to score a ton of campus and Canton points on your college side, but he's not a lock to make the NFL. He might have to change positions. So it's all about getting to the NFL for these quarterbacks. And, you know, this guy he's dripping NFL right now. I mean, right now, there'd probably be a team that would draft him in the first or second round, probably right now, just to try to mold him into the quarterback that we think he can be. Just because he reminds me, I mean, I'm not going to go Patrick Mahomes, but man, he looks like a Matthew Stafford right off the bat with the arm angles and the strength, maybe a little bit more mobile. Matthew Stafford. You see the NFL is moving now with really quick baseball type like quarterbacks that get the ball out of their hands very quickly at different arm angles. I think you got a steal at the end of the first round, Andrew.
Yeah, I was expecting to take a running back there, and then they just kind of took Bijan, most of the 2023 guys, and some of the top 22 guys. So it's like that's a blessing for me because, like you said, there's 11 guys I can sit here and name right now that could potentially be the QB3 of his 2022 class. I can't tell you 4 of the names I'd probably take over Quinn Ewers just for the 2024 class. I'd rather take that top end upside and just wait an extra year if needed and go from there.
Yeah, guys, when you get on this Devy side, be prepared to take the best player available and wait on him. That's fine. You can use him as an asset. He can always be traded if you need to go a different route. You can always you can always try to trade for him back or do whatever you need to do. Like he might not be able to might not be able to play him on an actual roster, like a starting lineup for 3 or 4 years, but that doesn't mean the asset won't grow and you can't maneuver your dynasty side to like, hey, you have a chance to win a championship. Like, you don't want to trade him, but if you can get, a star running back and a pick or something, and that's what you need, and your quarterback's already loaded because my man Andrew over here drafted every great quarterback.
Got to set the market.
Yeah, exactly, and I'm all about that. So I love it, and I love that you were chiming in on the 23 running backs.
Oh yeah.
That's me, man. I am so excited for the 2023 class of running backs. So I want to get your opinion. So Isaiah Spiller is by far my running back one of the 22 class. I don't know if he has as much upside as Robinson from Texas, or maybe even Gibbs from Georgia Tech or Bigsby, but I really like him to be the first running back taken, probably in the second round next year. What's the difference? Because obviously these guys aren't coming in for 23. He can come out in 22. How do you decipher through the value of it on who you want to draft? Do you pick the guy just because he can get on your team sooner? Are you just going on the overall talent?
I think it's somewhere in between for me. So, like Bijan, I would definitely take first overall. Kind of like you said, Felix said he was tier 0. Like that talent level, it's worth waiting on that extra year. But I know there's a couple things you might see with Tank Bigsby, Jahmyr Gibbs. We don't know who's the 2-3 right there, but I feel pretty confident that Spiller can keep growing his skill sets. He can hopefully start breaking some more tackles in the secondary level. That next year he ends up being the top pick for running backs in 2022 class. So for me, I've got him actually at RB2 overall for my personal rankings, and then it goes Bigsby and then Gibbs right behind it. So
are you not a bright tall guy, or he's just not the same upper echelon of talent?
Rhys Hall I like, but it's the athletic concerns. Like, I know the dude has plenty of skill to make it to the NFL, but I don't know if he has next level skill compared to Spiller, Bigsby, and Gibbs. I can teach someone how to help break tackles. I can't teach you to get from Hall speed skill set already to Spiller's. Some things are just natural for players, and when it comes to speed, you can only improve that so much. Yeah, I can teach you how to run a better 40 for him, but that never translates to the field, and you see that all the time out there. People talking about, oh, well, he ran a 4.3 on the 40, but look at the game film. How fast is he actually moving on the field? Spiller's just amazing when he moves around out there. I'll work on those breaking the tackle issues.
Yeah, we're watching some Beijing Robinson film right now, and it was earlier in the season against Kansas State right here, and you see a guy that's explosive. He's breaking tackles. He's big.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like a clone of DeAndre Swift to me. He looks like the exact same size, speed, elusiveness combination that DeAndre Swift brought from Georgia into the NFL. Had a very successful rookie season. I don't know if he's going to be a sub 4.3 guy, but he's got plenty of long speed, explosive, shifty. Beijing's the truth, that's for sure. Now this 23 class is loaded with a ton of guys I like. Bigsby he reminds me almost of a Le'Veon Bell type. He's not going to be another guy that's like a 4.3, guy, but he's very elusive, mm-hmm. and he runs behind his pads. He always falls forward. I was really impressed with Bigsby. Jamar Gibbs is your home run hitter from Georgia Tech. Those are my top 3. After that, I'm a huge Kendall Milton fan. Now, we didn't get to see a ton of it, and there's nobody more loaded than the Georgia Bulldogs in the backfield right now. So we're not even sure if he's going to be what we're going to know about him until maybe next season, because Zamir White's still there, James Cook's still there. They have a couple other guys. So Kendall Milton would be my 4th. Let's compare the 22 class to the 23 class. After Rhys Hall, I have Kyren Williams, who's a smaller scat back from Notre Dame. Eric Gray, who transferred to Oklahoma from Tennessee, who I think is going to have a monster season. And I love Kevin Harris from South Carolina. And I think there's going to be somebody that's going to emerge, like maybe a Zonovan Knight. But these are nice guys. Like, I'm waiting for some of these guys to emerge. The 23 class, I think, just has a whole different level of star power that reminds me of the 2020 class with DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, Jonathan Taylor, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It reminds me of that class. I love Chip Trayanum from Arizona State, 235-pound power back from Akron, Ohio. I'm a fan favorite of him. I don't know how the Big Ten let him out of Big Ten country. And then my U, man, we have a couple running backs too. So this 23 class, we don't, they were only true freshmen last year, and I can go 10 deep with talented running backs. Anybody else I'm skipping on this 23 class that we need to talk about?
Yeah, so for the 2023 class, I don't think you mentioned Zach Evans out of TCU.
I did not. You're right. You're exactly right.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I know a couple guys are kind of high on him. I've got a little bit of concerns because, we saw how the recruiting process played out. Never did get some confirmation on what happened on that, but there's always a little leniency, kind of like, Eric Gilbert, his situation. It's like, okay, well, what's going on? Is there more behind the scenes we don't know about? But also I did a study, and I actually released an article, I think, a month ago, talking about running backs and where their weight was going into college and how that progresses to, do they get to that magic 210-pound mark once they hit into the NFL? And when it comes to players in the 190s, when they get in there, it's really more 50-50. So, like, there's just other options. You mentioned Kendall Milton, I kind of like. Jace McClellan, another backfield over in Alabama that's just – it's loaded with weapons, so it's just a matter of he may have to wait. I'm hoping this year he actually pushes Brian Robinson out of the place. Did you mention Marshawn Lloyd over at South Carolina?
I did not. I mentioned Kevin Harris, who I'm a huge favorite of. But Lloyd is the touted guy, the more highly touted guy who ended up getting hurt for the entire season. Kevin Harris came out of nowhere as a 3-star recruit. Yeah, led the SEC in rushing last year, and we're talking a guy that he doesn't have to worry about being 210 because he's 230, rock solid. Reminds me of kind of a B+ version of Nick Chubb. Marshawn Lloyd is the guy that is more highly touted, but I don't think he's taking that job from Kevin Harris next year. I don't know.
So where I'm at with that, and I was kind of thinking about it. I think you're safe with Kevin Harris being the lead guy this year. Marshawn Lloyd, since he tore his ACL, we normally see the year after. They are like 60%, 70% of themselves as players and where they could be. So I think Lloyd, they'll kind of ease back into the season. And so that will give Harris plenty of time to cement his place. And you'll see Lloyd work his way back in. We could potentially see a couple hamstring issues pop up because that is common after a player tears their ACL for hamstrings be the next thing that has an issue. And then Lloyd will have the backfield back in 2023. So if you're for Kevin Harris, man, I get it. He should have this backfield all to himself. I just hope he doesn't decide to stay an extra year in college. And
yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that one. I like Kevin Harris, man. But bringing up the 190-pound mark, like Kyren Williams is a guy I really love. I think he has the best burst. Ahead of Spiller, ahead of Rhys Hall, ahead of Eric Gray. I mean, the initial burst really reminds me of Aaron Jones, who came into the NFL at about 205, and he was a 5th-round pick. If he can get up to that 205 mark, I think Kyren can be a day 2 pick in the NFL. If he's hovering around 195, and we've seen it last year. I was a huge Javian Hawkins fan. He went undrafted.
Yep.
So these smaller backs, and then Kenny Gainwell. I just found out it's Kenny. It's not Kenneth. I had a big discussion with Chase the other day about that. Kenny Gainwell, I mean, a player that went very high in Devy startups last year. So we can even bring up like what went wrong last year for Devy startups. Kenny Gainwell was a player that probably went in the 1st round of startups. If not, he went in the 2nd round. And he was a 5th-round pick. And we don't know what he's going to be in Philly other than a satellite back, possibly a return guy. Maybe he works himself into a 3rd down back. But the NFL spoke in the 21 draft, and they're fading smaller running backs.
I mean, it wasn't just that. It seemed like anybody that decided not to play last year, for example, Kylan Hill, I thought was a super great talent and didn't go to the 6th round. Apparently he's doing pretty good with the Packers this preseason, but I mean, anybody that sat out the season for any kind of concerns, you just saw their stock plummet. But especially with your smaller guys, the NFL just spoke volumes about just how much of a role they think they got. So that's kind of my concerns with Kyron Williams. Another guy back in 2022's class, Jerion Ely. I know I've seen him top 5 for some people, but the dude's still sitting at 190 pounds, and he just is still dealing with a shoulder injury. And I know this dude loves baseball. I have a feeling like there's a very good chance that somebody's going to take him with a better draft pick in the next baseball draft. And he says, screw it. I can stay healthier in baseball. I don't have to try and put on too much weight. I can just stay myself, stay my elite speed that I already got, and make a long living off of something he enjoys.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was a baseball prospect like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we're talking, what is he, about 5'9", 190?
I've got him listed at 5'8", 190. Yep, so pretty much.
So, yeah, he's a guy that – and he's not – I wouldn't consider him a 4-4 guy right now. I think he's a very good pass catcher. His best role is maybe a James White role in the NFL. If he could play Major League Baseball, he probably should, because he's a guy that's not getting drafted the first 2 days of the NFL. He's a guy I would fade on the Devy side 100%. It's about finding these guys that have the mix of size and speed. Mm-hmm. You can't just be a big guy anymore. Obviously, there's not too many Jerome Bettises walking in the door, running 4.7s that are going to be productive NFL backs. But on the other half, there's not too many 180-pound running backs that can do a lot. And Kylan Hill did fall. That was, I wrote up an article for Dynasty Nerds pre-draft where I ranked all my running backs. I gave them comparisons. And Kylan Hill's comparison, I believe I gave him TJ Yeldon. So listen to this, Andrew. You might like this. You might not like this. So I identified all the strengths, weaknesses, and I gave a player comparison. So, strength for Kylan Hill was like he was a jack of all trades to me. I couldn't identify something that he was 85% better than the average or anything like that. That's kind of how I scaled it. Or do you score above 85 at any attribute? And he really didn't. He's not really, really fast. He's not really, really an amazing pass catcher. He's good. I think he's like a tough runner. Like he can run in between the tackles. He can run outside, but he's not elite at either of them. He wasn't elite at anything. But his weaknesses were none. He can do everything well. He can do nothing great, which sometimes can get you a very good job in the NFL. But I think it had him fall a little bit in the draft, but I think he ended up in a good spot. I don't know that they're going to use a lot of running backs. A.J. Dillon's going to have his role, but Aaron Jones and him has fit the same body style. I know you're a Mississippi State fan, so I'm going to give him a little love. I actually just picked him up off of the waivers in one of my startups that did not have a taxi yet. Oh, so really? there wasn't a taxi. He was sitting there after he scored the touchdown in the first 2 preseason games, and I was kind of worried. I didn't have any fab to throw at him. I already wasted it on Jacob Eason or some shit.
Oof.
And, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to put the claim in for him. And I ended up getting him because everybody was sleeping. And I'm thinking Kylan Hill is a guy that I can try to sit on in Dynasty, and he can possibly be something. Good player. Just didn't – am I a little bit crazy here on that assessment? Like I said, weaknesses, none, strengths, none. He's just a really good player that doesn't really do anything great, but doesn't do anything bad. He can do anything you ask him. I just don't know if he's ever going to be a Pro Bowl elite talent.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll ever get to that. I think I could have came up with one concern for you when it comes to weaknesses. Playing time. There's a couple different games where I watched him. He would get hurt. He'd be out for half the game before he'd end up getting back in. So I think between that and then him starting the season at Mississippi State and then walking away, I think there is a little bit of concerns on just character, what was going on with that. So between that and sitting out, I think that just kind of knocked his stock to where it was when he came to the draft.
But I think you might have been a little bit salty, though. You might have been sad.
I was a little upset, but
hey, I'm a Miami fan. Gregory Russo played one season, had 15 and a half sacks, and then he left. He sat out the whole entire season. We had Jalen Phillips for one season. You realize we had 2 first-round defensive ends that never played together. Not one freaking snap. And that hurts as a fan. So I'm feeling your pain. Man. And, I love Mike Leach. He's coming in there. He's a gamer. Man, you're in a tough division of the toughest conference.
Oh yeah.
Mississippi State, man. Jaden Wally, big fan of Jaden Wally, man. I think he can be a guy that actually, let me look at my note. I think I identified him as one of the best kept secrets in Devi, one of the best values in Devi. Jaden Wally, definitely in campus of Canton, because we're talking a Mike Leach offense where I think he's going to be the number one the next 2 or 3 seasons, and he could catch 100 passes easily in a Mike Leach system. So I'm very excited about him. A fantastic true freshman season.
Oh yeah, like he was lights out this year. He had 76% of the snaps, 83 targets, 52 catches. He absolutely demolished the freshman receiving record, 718 yards. I mean, going forward, as long as he stays on the field, the dude should be our leading receiver until he goes in 2023 or 2024.
He started off a little slow, if I remember, but his last 4 or 5 games were money, if I remember correctly. So he's a guy to definitely look for. Any other sleepers before I get your final 4 picks and a couple of your award winners?
Yeah. So I was looking. We talked about the 2022 running backs just a little bit. One name we mentioned early in the episode didn't come back to is Zamir White. I know a lot of people are worried because early on to his playing career, high school and first year of college, he had those 2 ACL tears. Last year, kind of like I mentioned again with Marshawn Lloyd, he came along a little slowly, had some hiccups here and there, and then this past season he just absolutely went back to dominance. The dude was the number 1 rated running back coming into college, like ahead of Isaiah Spiller, Rhys Hall, Eric Gray, all these other top tier guys. I think he's someone to keep an eye on for sure. And then let's say, let me go find one for 2023 as well. And we'll do a receiver over here. Let's say I've heard it, and you mentioned Wally already, so I don't want to use him. I think EJ Williams over at Clemson is probably somebody to start watching. I know a lot of the news and the receivers has been focused mostly on, is Justin Ross back? Is he healthy? It seems like everything's pointing signs up, but I think EJ Williams is going to fit that like next T. Higgins role where he's going to grow into it and just be that big monster on the other side of the field. Plus, Clemson, they'll spread the ball out. He's going to get those matchups they like. TJU is a great quarterback. I think he's going to be able to find it and help boost his stock. So he's one to watch.
No, it's a good one. I actually just got him. I got him in like the 8th. I thought it was a steal. Ton of guys. Frank Gladson, Joe Nagata, Justin Ross. They're loaded. It's Clemson, man. They're loaded without a doubt. And it's going to be fun to watch these guys emerge because Amari Rodgers was such a big part of that offense last year. So they're going to – and all those guys are – that's the thing. All those guys are big guys. Amari was the slot guy. Like they have 6'3", 6'4" guys on the outside that can all run. And they have probably the quarterback with the strongest arm. So it's going to be really fun out there in Clemson. All right, Andrew, I'm going to put you on the spot, man. What's your final 4 as we end the show?
Ooh, all right, so final 4, looking at playoffs. Like I said earlier, I think Oklahoma's going to be in there. Ohio State's got the weapons. It's just which quarterback's going to lead them there. It's going to be the nice, fun storyline for us. And then I think it's going to end up probably being, again, Bama. Bryce Young's going to make it fit together, and Clemson, of course, coming back in. So, fortunately, I don't think it's going to be super fun this year. I think next year is when it really opens up. We'll see some new faces from different teams showing up.
See, I think this is the year that you could catch Alabama slipping. I mean, with the new quarterback, they lost some of their offensive line. I know it's Nick Saban. Maybe I'm being a little happy. And I know Miami plays in week 1. I'm not calling us to win. I'm just hoping we keep it competitive and we see what happens in the 3rd and 4th quarter. So you mentioned Clemson. Now, them and Georgia, week 1, fantastic matchup. That could be a Final Four matchup. And it might end up being a Final Four matchup because I have Georgia winning that game, very close. But Clemson, even if they lose that game, they're going to be a big favorite every other week of the season, including the ACC championship game. So Clemson's in for me. Oklahoma, I don't think anybody in the Big 12 is on their level, but nobody ever really is. And they always seem to get clipped somewhere. But if I have to put paper to pen, I would go ahead and put Oklahoma in there. So we got Clemson, Oklahoma. I want to say Texas A&M, Andrew. I
Really?
really do. I
They
think
are
this
the
is a
dark
team
horse.
that this is a team ready to rock and roll. We've seen Jimbo. Jimbo's got there. He's been there before at Florida State. He's finally got all his recruits in here. That team is locked and loaded, ready to rock and roll. Isaiah Spiller, they have the number 1 tight end in the country. It all depends on the quarterback. It all depends on the quarterback. They just named him the starter yesterday or the day before. What are they going to get out of this kid? Big question. I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna call it Texas. I'm gonna call Texas A&M, Georgia,
Okay.
Clemson, Oklahoma. Yeah, I think the Big Ten's going to knock each other out a little bit. I think it's a year to catch Ohio State, possibly. They get Oregon. That could be a tough matchup. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Like I said, Clemson and Georgia, they play each other, but I think Georgia's locked and loaded. And Eric Gilbert's a huge question mark. Darnell Washington's hurt. All I could think about is 2 6'6" tight ends with all the talent in the world with JT Daniels, Burton on the end, Zamir White, Milton. I mean, Georgia was locked and loaded, ready to go. We didn't even talk about George Pickens that they're not going to have. So they're missing a lot, but Georgia has a ton of weapons. I'm just feeling it. I'm feeling it's going to get a little dicey. You think it's going to be exactly how it's supposed to? I think it's going to get a little bit more dicey. So I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit. Who I know you're going to say Rattler. Who I guess would be your second favorite for the Heisman?
Second favorite, I think, honestly, if CJ Stroud can play the whole season, I don't see why he's not. I really think the dude has a good chance right behind Rattler. And then behind those two, I think it would end up being Bryce Young. And then, like I said, normally it's a quarterback, so I'm trying to think of a team that could come out of nowhere. I just don't think JT Daniels is going to throw enough over at Georgia to make him the guy. But like I said, I think it's going to be in my QB3 for the 2022 class right now, Matt Corral. I think that offense is just going to explode. But, again, that's all going to depend. Can they make a playoff push? If they can, we could definitely see it. If not, it'll be some other quarterback I don't know yet.
Yeah, a lot of it depends on how they play Alabama, how they play the big boys. So I think Isaiah Spiller has a really good chance to be the running back in the mix. I don't know if he's going to get there, but if this team is going to be a Final Four team,
it'll be on his shoulders.
It's going to be on the shoulders of Isaiah Spiller, and he's going to put up some gaudy stats. And he's a player that can emerge. Like I said, it's all about what you do against Alabama. Like Johnny Manziel, he won it back in the day because of what he did against Alabama. He was amazing every other week. It didn't really matter. What he did against Alabama won him the Heisman. Spiller would be my dark horse. You're not wrong with Rattler. He's by far the favorite right now. DJU at Clemson, it's hard not to bring him into the mix.
I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, did we see Trevor Lawrence even win a Heisman? Anytime in there, they don't play their starters long enough because they kill everybody.
Right. So do you have a possible like Doak Walker Award winner? Do you think it's going to be Spiller? Who do you think is going to come out of the Blitnikoff? Top wide receiver in the country this year.
All right. First going with the running backs. I don't know. I think Texas offense is truly Robinson and nothing else. So I think it's either going to be him or Spiller for the top running back. Receivers, I mean, we got our boy Keyshawn Boutte over at LSU. I think he could end up being something special. He absolutely went off once Terrence Marshall pulled out to get just ready for the draft. Garrett Wilson, I know we've mentioned him at Ohio State. I think it's going to probably end up being Garrett because we'll see that team get more of those major time games and get into the playoffs, whereas I think LSU doesn't make it that far. So I'd probably say Wilson.
Yeah, that's a great bet. Traylon Burke would probably be my guess because, I mean, we're talking 6'2", 225. I mean, a perfect comp of A.J. Brown. He's going to be the focal point of that offense. Mike Woods left last season, so he's going to be the focal point of a team that's going to have to throw it a lot in the SEC. And this isn't the same SEC that it was 7-8 years ago. They're throwing the ball around a little bit. It's looking more like the Big 12 and the Pac-12. Some of these games that you're seeing in the 30s and the 40s and 50s, when you're seeing Alabama running the spread offense and LSU was scoring 50 points a game with Joe Burrow. This is not your father's SEC. It's just not. They're throwing that ball around, and I love to see it. So Traylon Burks going to have every opportunity. I mean, they've returned him. I don't know if they're going to have him return kicks, but he's going to do a little bit of everything. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He gets handoffs, screens, stuff like that. They're going to get him the ball as much as possible. He probably would be, even though he's not my wide receiver one, he would probably be my best bet to win the Biletnikoff. And, it's tough, though.
It is tough, and the only reason I didn't say Burks is because KJ Jefferson, their starting quarterback this year, I've heard a lot of great things, but I haven't seen him play long enough to determine will he feature Burks enough and just pepper him with targets to let him build up enough stats to probably take it over Wilson or somebody else. But, yeah, he'd probably be a top 3 guy right there behind Keyshawn.
For sure, man. Hey, great stuff. I'm going to go ahead and end it. Andrew, tell everybody out there listening and watching right now where to find you, on what platform and what you do, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, anytime, man. So if you want to hit me up on Twitter, I'm @_Debbie Scouts. Again, I'm over at the Fantasy Scouts right now. I'm kind of leading up their Debbie department as we're growing, making it bigger. I was able to show Zack over at the Expo. I've gone in and built up a kind of a database of what I thought was some of the more major guys from each class from 2022, 2023, and 2024. We've got over 400 names already listed in there, and I've already got like 10 more names from just talking right now I thought of the top of my head I need to put in there. So, I mean, it's great stuff. We got our platform website, ffballallday.com, throwing out articles, content, inside info with NFL connections we got all over the place.
Awesome, man. No, you showed me your database a little bit. I really respected it. That's awesome. That's a lot of work. Man, that's what it's all about. So go find Andrew at Debbie Scout and Fantasy Scout and at the website and everything. He's the guy that'll point you in the right direction to get that Debbie team set up with Caleb Williams and all these crazy amount of quarterbacks this guy drafted, man. Get me in that league. Get me in that league. You wouldn't have got all those quarterbacks, I promise you. You wouldn't have got all of those quarterbacks. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to happen.
So this is Roster Rescue Live again. I'm going to be live every Thursday for the Thursday night football games at 7, answering questions, talking trades, previewing the games, previewing betting lines and everything like that. So 2 weeks, you'll be able to catch me every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. This is kind of the gear up for it. So, Andrew, thanks again for being on the show. Hope to talk to you soon, buddy.
I appreciate it. Have a good one, Zack.